apparently agrees with him. Well, the European Commission has been trying today to reassure the markets and the world that the new budget rules being put in place will be effective. And here's what was said in Brussels a short time ago.
They provide us with a concrete, immediate and decisive set of tools to ensure fiscal discipline, to stabilise the European economy and to prevent a new crisis in the EU.
That was Olli Rehn of the European Commission speaking a bit earlier, emphasising the Commission's view that these new budget rules being put in place will ensure fiscal discipline in the eurozone area. Let's explore now how Britain is going to manage its relationship with Europe and how this row may affect the confidence that the rest of the world has in Europe being able to sort out its problems. Live now to Joe Johnson, who's a Conservative Member of Parliament. Before being elected, he was also Associate Editor of the Financial Times and its South Asia Bureau Chief. How is Mr Cameron going to manage this now?
Well, I think, Michelle, nice to see you. The first point I'd like to make is in respect to what Olli Rehn just said about this fiscal pact being sufficient to resolve the eurozone crisis. I don't think it is. The most important indicator of the vulnerability of eurozone countries going into the crisis was not their budget deficit or their public debts. It was their current account deficits, their trade deficits. And those remain. The fiscal pact that was negotiated over the weekend did not address the fundamental issue of these ongoing trade imbalances, which leave peripheral eurozone countries so vulnerable to sudden changes of heart in international capital flows. If you're running a current account deficit, you need external capital, and that fundamental vulnerability remains.
But as far as Britain's relationship with all these countries is concerned, it's a curious position to be in, that having argued for all these countries in the eurozone to tighten up their act to be much more fiscally disciplined, we then had this scenario of a British Prime Minister, your party leader, turning up in Brussels and vetoing a new treaty that would move in that direction.
I think there are lots of examples of European countries within the European Union choosing to go their own way, and not everybody automatically has to do the same thing all the time. We've seen it with, for example, the euro itself. Presently has only 17 members rather than the full complement of 27. We've seen it with the Schengen Agreement to have cross-border passport-free travel among a subset of European Union countries. So it is possible for different countries to do different things at different times within the overall framework of the single market. And I think the critical point is, and what I'm sure David Cameron will be wanting to emphasise this afternoon when he goes to the Commons, is that Britain remains a powerful voice in the EU for an open single market. We are in the single market, we're not leaving the EU, and we remain open for business. Above all, what I'd like him to say is that we remain open for business for all companies around the world to continue to invest in the UK, as they have been over the years.
Well, except what he's done, surely, has made Europe look weaker, because the rest of the world is looking at Europe today thinking, gosh, look at you, you've got an economic issue and you can't even get a political act together.
Well, I think we've seen many iterations of this European summit meeting over the last year and a half, and I think Friday's summit did make substantial progress on the side of fiscal rules. That is an important part of the piece, but it's not the end of the story. They need to address the other underlying causes of where the eurozone went wrong, and I think in time we'll see those steps being taken too.
All right, just one specific point. You wrote in the Financial Times last week warning about the danger of over-regulation, European regulation of the City of London. I mean, nothing Mr Cameron walked away from Brussels with would reassure you, would it, about the EU's attitude to the City of London? If anything, this will have hardened those attitudes.
You're right. I think there is work to do to ensure that the whole of Europe regards the city as a European success story, much as we regard German luxury car making or the French wine industry or French aerospace industry as European success stories that need to be cherished and promoted. I think there is work to do to ensure that our European partners really see that having a deep and liquid capital centre in the City of London implanted in the EU is a great European success story that we would be very foolish to jeopardise through hasty regulation.
Joe Johnson MP, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll have David Cameron's statement to the House of Commons live in another couple of hours here on BBC World News. Now, other top stories of the day. Syria is holding local elections despite the